What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Jump to Start Racing podcast. My name is Wellington, here with two of my closest friends. Ruben, say hello.
What's going on, guys?
Yhancy?
Hi.
Oh, man. It's so funny.
It was, I think, the spot on jump that you did.
I think it was the finger flick.
Yeah, it is sharpshooter, you know? We always talk about the excellence of execution, right?
Hey, everybody.
Okay. How was you guys' weekend so far? July 4th weekend.
Very good.
Good. We got the race was good, man. Started off well.
He asked about the weekend, not the race.
The weekend, it was whatever, but the race was the highlight so far.
Ruben, your
we got
weekend was
another
good?
day.
Yeah, very good. Can't complain.
Very good.
We got another day.
Yeah.
So we got another day.
All right, let's jump into this. The news. Prior to the race, Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes agreed to a 2-year contract extension. Ruben, who helped negotiate the whole thing, he knew the salary range. What? How did you know the salary?
It's a cap. Are they going to give him less money than 30?
No. So $30 million a year,
Shocking.
30 million pounds a year, right?
Whatever it is. But he's
Whatever
getting 30.
the denomination is.
Shocking.
But it's a 2-year extension. Shocking, right?
Wasn't expecting that
Crazy.
at all.
How would they? What do you think?
Well, listen, man. We all knew that was going to happen. We just didn't know how long he wanted to sign. Honestly, I didn't think he was going to sign for 2 years.
No?
No, I thought he was going to do another 1-year contract.
Yeah, his last 2 deals were 1-year deals, right?
Yeah. Well, especially considering that it seemed like the last negotiation was very contentious, and he didn't get everything that he wanted. So that's why he only signed 1 year. So the 2 years was a surprise, but it wasn't a total shocker. I mean, obviously I was being sarcastic, but the 2 years was a surprise, but not kind of surprised, because if you're going to keep a driver for 2 years, it's definitely going to be Lewis Hamilton. Now, this sets up for who's going to be in the second seat for the next 2 years at Mercedes.
Well, I think it's going to be George Russell, but
I don't think so.
No?
You don't think it's going to be George Russell?
Nope.
How is that possible? How do you think it's not George?
Nope.
I mean, 2023 as well is also going to be a year where a lot of people are going to be free agents too. So that makes sense to sign up to 2023, because it become, for both the teams and for Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton, because it's going to be an open market. So obviously they could use that to negotiate against him.
Yeah, your hand's open too when you touch the microphone too.
My bad.
I
Like
don't think
Max
it's
is going to be
George
up that
Russell.
year. I think Leclerc's going to be up that year as well.
Yeah,
So it's going to be a couple of people out there that.
but I don't think it's going to be George Russell.
So who's it going to be?
Oh no, for the second seed.
Bottas. Listen, when Lewis Hamilton was asked about this during a press conference, I think it was last week,
Okay.
he spoke glowingly of Bottas. That is, he's been his best teammate so far. The team has a harmonious feel to it, and they've obviously won multiple championships with those two driving. And he obviously still has a bad taste in his mouth for the
Nico
Rosberg
Rosberg, yeah.
years.
Okay.
It only behooves Mercedes to keep that dynamic going in order for them to be successful, especially now that you do have a legitimate contender in Red Bull, and the rules are changing next year, so you don't know who else might jump into the fray, because you have McLaren and you also have Ferrari getting better. So for you to throw a wrench in the form of George Russell, I think you're going to make it a contentious driver relationship between the two drivers. I've always said this, so I don't think it's a good idea.
So poor George.
Yeah,
Where's he
basically. I mean, listen, he's
Gotta sit
driving his
tight.
lights out,
Yeah.
but Bottas ain't driving bad either. So
He's not driving well either. So that's I was not prepared to talk about this, but based on the performance that we're getting, obviously this weekend notwithstanding from Perez, you see why that second teammate doing well and contending for the top of the Drivers' Championship is important for a top team. I understand that Hamilton is the reigning world champion several times over, and that he is I'll call it the catalyst of the team, and especially the face of the team on the track. But you're focused, if you're Toto Wolff, you're focused on not just that aspect, but you need the Constructors' Championship too. That's where you really get your money. The Drivers' Championship doesn't award the prize money; it's the Constructors.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if Russell could prove to be a better driver, which we really haven't seen, we can't really judge from just a secure Grand Prix. If he could prove to be a better driver than Bottas, I think you got to make that move.
And George is nipping at the heels, but I don't think he will.
Well, he's driving and he deserves to have it. So.
Absolutely. But, I mean, like I said, Bottas isn't driving terrible either. His last 3 finishes have been 4th, 3rd, and 2nd. Perez 3rd, 4th, and 6th. So, it's very comparable as far as you compared the second drivers for the top 2 teams.
You're right on that.
Okay.
What was it? Okay.
No, so my whole thing is that I get what you're saying, but yeah, it would be a very different discussion right now if Mercedes had been able to execute that pit stop in Monaco and Bottas finishes second and is plus 18 points.
Yeah.
Because he'd be at 110, he'd be a clear 3rd place right now ahead of Sergio Perez.
Right.
So
and we can all agree that Bottas has probably been one of the most unluckiest drivers on the grid, not only this year, but the past few years as well.
Yeah, he always has the worst pit stops. Obviously, no fault of his own. Or sometimes they try to blame him.
Yeah, which is not fair. Or he gets a tire blowout when he's about to win a race.
Oh, my God.
I mean, again, it's just a lot of different things. Yeah, he has his bad race every once in a while, but for the most part, Bottas is pretty consistent. And a good second driver. Not a good number 1 driver, but he's a good second driver.
All right, moving on, but continuing to speak about Mercedes. According to Andrew Shovlin, Ruben's one of his favorite engineers in all of F1. That's the guy that does the race debrief.
For Mercedes.
The guy you find highly entertaining. Come on, you rave about him all
every
the time.
Week.
The guy is so boring. I'm not even supposed to remember his name. Like, how am I supposed to remember this guy's name? I fall asleep.
Can you at least act that you love him?
Of course. He's very intellectual. And he knows what he's talking about.
There is a final update for the Mercedes car coming in Silverstone for both their power unit and their aero. So I had missed this during the post-race discussions, but both Yhancy and Ruben brought up that Toto Wolff specifically said to them that said to the interviewers that they are going to have the last laugh in. What was the exact quote?
Ruben.
Don't be surprised if we end up leading whatever in the last race by a ton of times. I said it 26 seconds. Like, no, he didn't say that. So we still got to verify.
You still got to verify.
But Toto Wolff is very confident that next year or next race they'll be able to not just improve on their own performance but surpass Red Bull.
They're bringing in the engine upgrade.
Bring an engine upgrade and an aero upgrade.
So check this out. All right. So this is something that I didn't mention last week, but this happened when Red Bull brought their upgrade. I think it was for the first race in Austria. They brought an engine upgrade. I don't know if it was either that race or the race before.
French.
Okay. They supposedly got 14 extra horsepower out of that upgrade. Now, it wasn't an upgrade like they changed the part. It was, you're allowed, when you bring an update under the rules, when you bring an upgrade, you are allowed to change a part due to reliability issues. So the engine was always capable of that, but they always run it lower because there was something vibrating in the engine, so they were afraid that the engine would go. So when they brought that upgrade, they fixed that part and they were allowed to change it under the rules, so because the engine would be more reliable and it's safe and, et cetera, et cetera. So now that loophole has been exposed. I wouldn't be surprised.
That's what Mercedes is doing.
If Mercedes is doing that. And I think it was Andrew Shovlin that also mentioned this. It's either him or the other guy that Ruben find very entertaining. Mentioned that there are updates in the pipeline. They're not currently developing the car, but they have
That they already
parts that they had already in the pipeline. They are bringing to the next race. And Toto Wolff also mentioned that there is a gap. Yeah, they're faster, but they're not that much faster than us, or meaning Mercedes. So he seems very confident that this title fight will be going down to the end. A lot more confident than last week, I would say.
So it's around this time also the Mercedes normally turns it up as well. So
what was the loophole that they found? They changed a part.
They had a part in their engine, Honda. We're talking about Honda, that was vibrating too much, causing too much vibration. So they were afraid that, as far as reliability is concerned, that they couldn't turn the engine up because that part would go. So you're allowed to change that within the rules.
You're allowed to make a change in order to improve reliability.
Yeah, right. And it's also due to safety also, because you have to do 3 engines, within the year. So you're allowed to change that part as long as you don't change the makeup of the engine. You have to change that part as long as it stays the same. I guess they just improve that part.
Is it a specific part? You're saying that part. Is it a specific part?
They don't go into detail. But that is what being said. They're not going to go into detail saying, oh, it's the, MGUK or the MGUK. They're not going to do that. So, because obviously everything is very secretive.
Or the gas pedal cable is now made out of carbon fiber instead of fiber optic, whatever. They're not going to say anything. I don't know. Just saying.
But if Toto Wolff is talking that confidently, that means that they got something, and they're bringing their second engine. You can bring an update to that second engine as long as it's for reliability. So there's your loophole.
It'll be a home race for Lewis Hamilton too.
Yes.
So I'm sure.
And kind of a home race for Mercedes.
It's a home race for everybody.
And Williams.
Yeah, for everybody, because everybody's based out of the UK.
I don't know.
This ain't over yet, man.
Yeah.
But is McLaren going to get that upgrade as well right away? Do they?
Yeah. Okay. They all got it. Same engines.
And Williams.
So
Poor Williams.
Listen, man.
Hey, it might be solidified 10 now.
Yeah.
Listen, don't bring out that Nico Rosberg meme out yet, buddy.
Yeah.
This ain't over yet.
Is Yancey's career over? Speaking of engine and engine upgrades and engine updates, the VW Group, some other car manufacturers, have joined in on discussions for the 2025 engine regulations. Specifically, Audi and Porsche, their bosses, have met with the FIA, along with a representative from Ferrari, Mercedes, and Alpine/Renault as the engine manufacturers. So the intent there is to make them more comfortable with the regulations to the point where we could potentially have additional engine manufacturers for the grid for 2026, I guess. The regs would start.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts? Well, Porsche was previously in Formula One.
Yes.
Audi, no.
But it's the same company.
Now it is.
Yeah, but now it's the same company.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I hope they're able to come in because, remember, there's 2 companies that are also heavily involved in motor racing or motorsport in general.
Yeah.
Audi and Porsche are, Le Mans winner, DTM, all of the other stuff. They're heavily involved in all that stuff. So if they're able to come in and it's affordable to them to do it, why not?
Yeah, it has to be.
Makes sense. That's what makes sense.
It has to be road relevant. I think that's the reason why they didn't join the fray when they with the hybrid engines, because they had an issue with the MGUH. I think the MGUH is super complicated. It's not something that that's why they chose to go to WEC, WEC. So you can feel more comfortable with that terminology, Ruben.
Thank you.
And they ran the table there, obviously, with Audi and Porsche. They won all the championships there. It'll be good also to have another engine manufacturer now that, obviously, you're going to have Red Bull Technologies who's taking over the IP for Honda. So now you got 4. If you bring in another 5 into the fray, that means that, 1, you're bringing another engine, and 2, you can potentially bring in not only another manufacturer, maybe a works team, but also other teams that have a choice between 5 engines. So not everybody is the same. So I think it's a good idea. I don't know what they are going to decide on as far as if they're going to keep hybrid engines. There's been talk that they might do hydrogen engines. I mean, it's still too early to tell. However, if they can bring in another manufacturer where the engine formula is not too difficult, where they don't have to spend a ton of money, even though now it doesn't seem like they're going to have to spend a ton of money on R&D because there is a cost cap, it's going to be good for the sport. You know, you have more teams in the fray, you have more engine manufacturers, you have more competition, you have, development. You have a development race, which F1 has always been a development race. I think it's going to be good for the sport. I think we do need another engine manufacturer. No doubt about that.
The more the merrier.
Yeah.
Currently have 4, right?
Correct. And then you have Mercedes, which is supplying Williams.
And McLaren.
We
have Ferrari.
Which is supplying Haas and Alfa Romeo.
Yep. And then Alpine/Renault.
Alpine/Renault, and then you have the Honda engine. You felt that Red Bull at one point didn't have. Obviously, they ran Renault engines. They didn't want to go back to them. Them and Ferrari don't have a very good relationship, so they didn't have much of a choice, and they had to work out a deal where they can buy the Honda IP. Same thing with McLaren when they were looking for engine manufacturer. Obviously, they brought in Honda. Or Honda came in the fray. They didn't have a good relationship with Honda. That obviously did not work out. They went to Renault, and that was okay. And then they had to go back to Mercedes engines. But maybe Renault or Aston Martin or McLaren would like a VW engine. Maybe they can have a better relationship with them so they can be a little bit more competitive. This is what happens. You join these teams with they build chassis. But they also want to have an engine that's reliable. If you can get a good relationship, as you can see that Honda did with Red Bull, it can be very successful. Now you imagine having 2 teams doing that at the same time, 3 teams doing that at the same time. I think that it'll be fun for us to watch.
I think it's also good for the survival of the sport. For example, if Ferrari's not going to leave, right? Because it's Ferrari, right? That's their whole thing, racing. Say if Mercedes just says, you know what, I'm kind of tired of this. I'm deciding I'm just going to leave.
Right.
The works team's gone. McLaren has to find a new engine supplier. Williams has to find a new engine supplier. Then what? Now there's a scramble because there's no Honda. They're gone. So it's either Renault or Ferrari. And then what do you do? Now these teams are going to be strained, or these constructors, the works teams will be strained to then do their own thing and provide the customer teams with their stuff, and then also provide customer support, etc. It's just good for the survival of the sport. The more manufacturers that,
and if you look at any other series, any other racing series, it's important to have manufacturer support. It's the reason why you've seen Formula E grow exponentially, and obviously the technology is there because a lot of car manufacturers are going electric as far as for their road cars, but you also have a lot of manufacturer support. You have BMW there, you have Audi, you have Porsche. No, Audi's not there no more. You have Porsche. They're the same group, but they did have Audi before.
Nissan's there, man.
Nissan's there. You have Mercedes, obviously. DS, Neo. There's a whole bunch of manufacturers, not only electric car manufacturers, but you have traditional road car manufacturers that are involved in the sport. That's why the sport is growing, but they use that as a test bed for their road cars. Yeah. Formula One obviously is not going to be as much of a test bed as it was before for the road cars, but it's still very important because it has a global, not only for the marketing aspect of it, but it's also you have the freedom in Formula One to test
that's right.
new technologies that you don't have in other racing series, other top
Formula
racing
One
series.
It's like the breakthrough of technology.
You have that freedom. So if you can get more manufacturers, not only will F1 be successful, but the car manufacturers will also be successful in introducing new products to us.
I'm with it.
Me too.
Do it. I'm with it.
I want to press the DRS button when I'm on the FDR.
Oof.
All right, let's jump into it. Weekend race review.
Gentlemen, a short view back to the past.
You still don't know what it was, right?
30 years ago, no, I don't know. So.
You want me to get your transcript?
No, I'm good. So, kind of the first thing to really talk about here, just the weekend in general. Lando Norris, just
Story of the race.
Story of the race, story of the season. As far as well, no, not the story of the season because that's Red Bull. All season he's been killing it, outperforming his teammate who is an established veteran, really squeezing the juice out of that car as best as possible. Finished second place this weekend, third place last weekend. Obviously, he loves.
No,
He finished third place both weekends.
Mm-hmm.
Loves the track. What more could be said about this guy? Qualified on the front row.
Mm-hmm.
Only driver to score in every race so far this season. He maintained second place while battling with Lewis Hamilton to the point where Lewis Hamilton comes back and says, that guy's a heck of a driver. Mid-race, right? Was putting the car in position
Mando.
Yeah. He
says he's a great driver. Great driver, Lando.
Yeah. So at the time, Hamilton's car was better when they were battling. Hamilton's car was better than Lando's, right? And it just took smart racing, smart car positioning to be able to keep Lewis Hamilton at bay, which he did. He took a 5-second penalty after his battle with Perez, which we'll talk about the penalties later. But even after serving that penalty, was able to maintain his second place. Or third place. I keep saying second.
Yeah. He could have finished second.
He could.
Because of the penalty.
Without the penalty, he would have been. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, but then we also see just smart, hard-nosed racing, clean, doesn't get, as we say in Spanish, desesperado. He doesn't
get antsy, not desperate.
No,
he
he's
seems like a cool, calm, much like what Verstappen was this whole weekend.
Yeah.
We didn't get the usual.
Come on.
We didn't get the usual, Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas podium, which is always good. We have seen throughout this whole season, because Lando is driving lights out. And I'm going to say Lando just because he's literally carrying McLaren. McLaren's car is good, but obviously Ricciardo's not up to speed. Sometimes you have the Ferraris in the fray. We don't know how the podium, it's not like last season, we don't know how the podium is going to shape up because we don't know, once we come to the track, we don't know who's going to be good and who's going to be bad. And it's like we said, this race didn't shape out nowhere near what the Styrian Grand Prix was, which was the first race at the Red Bull Ring. Lando, obviously, Max was in another world. He won the race. He's driving lights out. But I think Lando, or Mando as we like to call him, is driving probably just as good and just as consistent as Max Verstappen this season. And I've fully bought in. I was a little bit hesitant because we know that Lando tends to, start off good and then fall off and trail off. Not that he drives bad, but he just trails off. This season, he is on it every single race.
Well, this is still the start.
Well, but we're already, 8 races in. Yeah. So, usually it's like the first 3 or 4 races and then, there's a little bit of a drop off. He comes back and it's not consistent. The fact that he was able not only to qualify second, but keep running in that top group the entire race is extremely impressive. And you have to take note of that. And I felt like this was his coming out party. Like, now we have to notice you, bro. And there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders right now because now he has to keep it up.
I think he's had that pressure, the pressure you're talking about since last year. But obviously this year is just where they've worked on the car to have it as well, being able to maintain that, somewhat close to that pace. He has a lot to do with it because he's been very solid on his driving. Mm-hmm. But he has shown us that already the previous years where he's done very clean driving, very clean battles. Mm-hmm. So it was just a matter of time. He just needed a little extra push from the car to, hey, he's already shown us that, hey, I could do this, but give me a little bit more from my team or from camp, whatever you want to call it, mm-hmm. and I'm there, and that's what he's showing us. Hopefully, he stays up with it because obviously he's not there anymore in the points. So that could be the beginning of the fall, because that's what happened last year. He was on third place for a very long time, and then he just went away.
Yeah, but I think this year he also has a better car under.
Yeah, of course.
He has shown that he can run best of the rest.
Yeah.
Now, I think this race I can run in the top 3 also, if I have the car under me to do so.
I think the worry should be Ferrari, not running the top 3. Just push the car as far as you can. Then you start to worry about Ferrari. Ferrari's going to be out their heels for a long time.
Right.
I don't know. For me, it is about.
I'm sorry. Remember, it's him. Ricardo's not doing much.
Well,
so if Ricardo was at the pace Leclerc signs, then we'll be talking a little bit differently. You know.
Right.
McLaren has 141 constructor points. Lando has 101 of them. Right.
Insane.
So that is insane. And Ricardo actually did pretty well this weekend. He finished 7th. We'll talk about him later. But what I do want to mention is that when you see Lando, where he is different from Max a few years ago, Leclerc now and previous years, George Russell previous years, Pierre Gasly, Esteban Ocon, you see him in tight spaces. You see him fighting Hamilton and Perez this race. Did not lose control, did not make a single mistake. Crazy, right? Crazy for a young guy like that. We saw him.
The penalty to me was BS.
We'll get there. The what was it? 2 races ago in France, Nico Rosberg even pointed out Pierre Gasly sneaking up on him and almost hitting him. And it's like, oh, who is this guy? Why is he? Did not lose control. Does not lose focus. He's just.
And you see that with his battles with Leclerc too.
Yeah,
everybody has had various battles with Leclerc, and it's always been super clean racing, nothing sketchy. It's just been hard-nosed, wheel-to-wheel battles.
And patient.
Yeah. You can see that it doesn't fluster him, and that's a sign of a world champion.
It reminds me of Lewis Hamilton driving. You don't see mistakes from Lewis Hamilton like that, and you don't see Lando Norris. He does not make mistakes, or he does not make moves that jeopardize his race and his team, which is a level of maturity that you would not expect from a guy that's essentially still a Twitch streamer.
And you also don't see the mistakes that, for example, if we watch Max Verstappen a few years ago, or even Leclerc running it into the wall or hitting his teammate.
Coming in too hot into turns.
You're not seeing any of that we've seen from drivers that we regard as, top future world champion caliber drivers in Leclerc and Verstappen. You're not seeing that in Lando Norris. You're seeing it very, very clean. It's almost Carlos Sainz-esque, but quicker. It's crazy.
And he looks like he's having fun doing it.
Yeah.
You don't see him worry like, oh my God.
Yeah.
No. He slaps it off.
And warranted what Lewis Hamilton said about him. Said great driver Lando, because he was battling the 7-time world champion, arguably one of the greatest of all time, and to keep it clean and still get out ahead of him, dude, bravo. Bravo, round of applause. Round of applause, Ruben. Round of applause, Ruben. Round of applause, Ruben.
So you mentioned he's battling Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion, etc. Lando's also in a slower car. So it's like,
yeah, it's just, he's just,
he's showing like a veteran. That's what he's showing.
La está sacando lo moco.
Yeah.
Damn.
Saying that in
He's
Spanish,
doing good.
bro.
He's doing good.
Yeah.
Lando's currently 4th in the Drivers' Championship at 101. Sergio Perez is at 104. So he gained a lot of ground this weekend on Sergio Perez. And Bottas is at 92 and 5th. Next nearest midfield competitor, quote-unquote midfield, is Charles Leclerc in 6th at 62. So he's 39 points ahead of Charles Leclerc. Crazy.
Yeah. He's doing amazing.
The penalties. Let me just run down what we had. Right, Lando 5 seconds for pushing Sergio Perez out. Sergio 2 times 5-second penalties for pushing Charles Leclerc out, or for not allowing enough space. Let's put it that way. Not pushing him out. Giovinazzi 5 seconds for overtaking while safety car is deployed. Like, what are you doing? I think he went into the pit straight, and he was faster in the pits than what they were doing, because I think Max Verstappen just kept it so slow even after the safety car went in that
He went into he went into the line and then he crossed back into the line. He did it twice.
No, we're talking about Giovinazzi.
Oh, Giovinazzi. Okay, sorry.
Now
Tsunoda.
Now Tsunoda.
I'm still wondering how the hell Giovanazzi's penalty happened. Like, okay, he's speeding on the
Because he was going faster in the pit lane than what Verstappen
actual
was
race.
allowing them to go.
So he passed these drivers on the pit, and he still got a penalty.
Right, and then what happened is the safety car come in. So after they crossed that white line, he was out of position. That's so messed up. Tsunoda, double 5-second penalties for crossing the line at pit entry. Go ahead, Yhancy.
What?
No, you mentioned it right before.
Oh yeah, he
What?
yeah, I don't know why you do how you do this twice. I mean, I guess it's hard because you got to break hard to get into the pits. But once you're on the, I think on the right side of the white line, you can't go outside of the white line. Stay between the lines going into the pit. He did it twice. He got 2 5-second penalties for it. He killed the entire race.
It's not that it's hard. Mazepin's doing it.
Yeah.
Schumacher's doing it. So it's like, come on.
It's like you're killing your entire race with that, and you already started off on the wrong strategy. Whatever, man. Rookie mistakes, I guess, but to do it once, all right. But do it twice, come on, bro.
Stroll 5 seconds for speeding in the pit lane.
Oh, B.
Come on. Pit limiter. I never heard of it. And 8 F1 drivers summoned over yellow flag breached. So
That was
at the end of the race, Kimi Räikkönen and Sebastian Vettel collided, essentially, because Kimi didn't see Sebastian Vettel. Then 8 drivers, because it was a double yellow flag, they didn't slow down enough. It was Sergio Perez, Carlos Sainz, Nikita Mazepin, Charles Leclerc, Nicolas Latifi, Antonio Giovinazzi, Daniel Ricciardo, and Pierre Gasly all met up with the race director.
That sounds like the race run.
But did that happen in their cooldown lap?
No, happened at the last lap.
They were all lapped, remember?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, they were all lap. Happened at the last lap, and for some reason, I don't know how Kimi and Seb got into an accident.
Probably fell asleep.
I mean, it was Kimi's fault.
Yeah.
Because he just didn't see. I guess it looked like to me he didn't see Seb and just turned into him. I don't know, bro. And then obviously there's a double yellow. You need to slow down. I guess. I mean, it was the last lap. So
Okay, so what do we think of the Sergio Perez and Lando Norris penalties? That they were pretty much carbon copies of each other. What do we think? Racing incident,
which ones?
He's talking about
Lando and Sergio Perez
Yes.
and then Perez with the
forcing the other drivers out of the track
Okay.
into the gravel.
No, there were 2 different ones. The Lando one, I don't agree with at all, because Lando coming. My understanding of the rules is always all right. If you're side by side and the car ahead gets the racing line, the car ahead in that instance was Lando Norris, even if it was by a little bit. If you're ahead,
I think it was Perez that was ahead.
no.
Okay.
No. It was Lando that was ahead by a little bit. Lando was ahead. He keeps the racing line. That racing line, when you go around that corner, is going to take you to the outside of the corner. Okay? And that's why there's a gravel trap there. I don't know why the stewards found a problem with this, because it's been done in other. I think the last time it was done, it was Hamilton and Lewis.
Hamilton and Lewis?
Hamilton and Lewis. It was Hamilton and Albon.
He's having a tough time.
Yeah, I am. Hamilton and Albon happened last year. This is when Albon got run off. But Lewis got a penalty because Albon was actually ahead of him at that point.
Okay.
This time, the guy on the inside, which was Lando, was ahead of Perez. So I don't think he should have gotten a penalty for that one. Leclerc's incident, Leclerc was ahead of him.
Same area, too.
Same
The first
area,
one.
same turn. The first one, same turn. Leclerc goes out on the outside. He's on the outside. He's ahead, but Perez doesn't just move in on him. He moves in on him to the point where he hits him.
The bump.
They bump into, and then he pushes Leclerc out. That penalty, I think, is deserved. You guys, I don't know what you guys think. We haven't talked about this, so.
No, I think that The second one with the bump, yeah, I agree with you. But the first one, it was like, I don't know. It's just.
Well, I don't agree with that one. I don't think Lando should have gotten
They
the.
have to,
Yeah. You have to let him race. It's so hard because the natural racing line is going to take you out there, right? If you're going on the outside, and every driver knows that, if you're going on the outside, and it's not like a normal turn, it's like it gets
like you're
tighter
sliding
as you
out
go
there,
in. You know there's gravel on this side. Back out. If not, you're going to be in the gravel. The person that should have been penalized there should have been Perez, but not penalized by the stewards. He already got penalized. He's in the gravel.
Yeah.
He went to 10th place.
No, for a minute when I was watching the race, I thought he would probably get a penalty the way he joined back because there was a bunch of cars behind him still, even when he joined. So I was like, oh, is that going to be unsafely, unsafely joining, whatever the hell it's called? I don't remember what it's called. But, like when you just come into the track right away and just pretty much you're also now hindering the guys.
Like I said, my viewpoint has always been if you're ahead, even if it's by a little bit, you get the racing line. You dictate what's going on in the corner. Obviously, you have to leave a car's width, but in that instance, and every incident is different. But in that instance, every track is different. It's impossible at the speed that you're going into that car to keep it tighter, because if you do keep it tighter, then the person who's going to win out is always going to be the person on the outside, because you got to change course if you want to leave a car's width. But the natural racing line takes you out there. The person who's behind needs to know to back out, or you're going to be in the gravel.
That's what happened to Paris.
So I disagree. I think that so we've been asking the FIA to be consistent with their rulings, and I think that for once we saw that this week.
They were like went overboard.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah.
So is the rule you have to leave a car's width on the outside of on the track, or is it you have to leave a car's width on the track depending on the turn if it's in the racing line? No, it's you have to leave the car's width. That's why I think that both penalties were justified. The one that I questioned was actually the Perez second incident, because you can clearly see that the trajectory of the car. You could see it because you can see Ricardo in the distance, right ahead of him. And the way that he turns on the track naturally takes him to the outside. And this is somebody that's driving uncontested. Perez, almost a mirror image of what Daniel Ricciardo was doing in front, because that is the way that the car is going to react. And that was the second incident where Leclerc went to the outside. But at the end of the day, the rule is you have to leave enough space for a car.
If the car's ahead of you.
No, I disagree.
And this is the problem though, because I agree with you that we're very consistent. Obviously,
they've been inconsistent.
No. What I'm saying is that at this race they were consistent with their penalty calls, because once they made that first call on Perez, when it happened again, they couldn't back out. They're gonna have to give Perez that second penalty because he was the culprit, driving out Leclerc off the track, right? And he hit Leclerc at that point. It was even more messy than when it was. So it was very consistent. But now what you're saying is, and this is, I think there has to be they have to look at the rules, because I think the problem is within the rules. If you as the FIA are allowed to go, we see this all the time. You're allowed to go to every track and see where the cars are going. You change the rules based on where the cars are going, based on the weekend. What is so different now? You get what I'm saying? So the big thing this year has been track limits.
Yeah.
They're policing track limits. And they change it every track because everything is track specific. So if you can change the rules or the standards
or the mic
for every track, then knowing that a car, the natural racing line of the car going through that corner is going to take that car almost to the outside of the corner when you're going in, then you can definitely be a little bit more subjective. The problem is that they're not. Everything has been subjective instead of objective. They try to keep it objective, but then you get into this gray area and there's no clear line on how to make these calls.
I'm going to disagree. It's one thing to talk about track limits. It's another thing to talk about racecraft and how the cars are going to race. So I'm going to give you an example, right? We saw those incidents with Sergio Perez in general, right? He was involved in all three. We saw battles the whole race, and I'm going to focus specifically on Hamilton and Lando, where Lando never allowed himself to get into that position with Lewis Hamilton where he could get him on the outside. His racecraft predicated that he would not give that type of position. So at that point, you're never going to be in a situation where, oh, I have to give enough space because my racecraft was so messed up that it allowed him to get the faster trajectory around the. So to me, if you're the FIA, you're saying, driver, you have to figure it out. I'm not here to bail you out by saying, oh yeah, okay, you're free to do whatever you want. The rule is that you have to not allow enough safety-wise. You have to allow enough space on the track for both cars.
Yeah, but it also, again, through that's the thing, is that this is corner specific to this corner specific, because that
it happened on two different corners with Perez and Leclerc.
No. But the thing is, those were that one again is you're ahead, and in this instance, for example, Leclerc was ahead. He owns the racing line. His car's gonna take him out there.
So you don't agree on leaving,
No, you
with
can.
space?
You can if you have to if you can. You get what I'm trying to tell you? You have to if you can, because now what happens is if you have a car, if that car is even if it's behind you on the outside, if you have to change your trajectory of your car, you're gonna lose out.
Yeah.
You get what I'm
we
saying?
agree on that, 'cause
So
they have to-
there's no point in being ahead in the corner.
I agree.
It's very tricky. I'm not, it's
The moment you say that an official has to make a decision about whether it was fair or not, who was ahead or not, what was the trajectory, that's when you start getting into like, okay, this is, so they want so-and-so to win, it's a conspiracy, and now it's too subjective. To me, it's drivers figure it out. Your racecraft has to dictate what you're doing, but you need to leave the space for the other cars on track.
Yeah, but if you let the drivers figure it out, then, I don't know. It's very tricky. There's no right answer to this. It's just like, because either way we look at it, if you look at it, your viewpoint or my viewpoint, somebody's going to lose out. And I don't think, my personal view is that if you're ahead, you shouldn't be losing out. But you're right. Because if you're right in a sense, because if you're not objective about it, then the drivers are going to take advantage of it. We see it with track limits. If you don't police track limits, they're going to go out there.
So let me ask you a question. You said if you're ahead, you shouldn't lose out. But if I'm faster and I'm going to pass you, I should lose out because you decided you didn't want to leave me space and break the rules? That's not right either.
You should wait if you're faster than me, you
But
should wait
if
for the right moment to pass me.
What if that's an optimal time to pass, which we saw because we saw multiple times there?
But for example, Leclerc was ahead. Lando was ahead. Lando shouldn't have gotten a penalty. Lando's ahead. He did what he had to do. Leclerc was ahead in both instances with Perez.
And there was swap as well. Remember, Lando had the inside, Leclerc had the outside.
Yeah.
On a separate turn.
On a separate turn. No, on different turns, obviously. But the first instance with Perez happened same turn as Lando.
Yep.
The second one was, the second one is
my understanding has always been if you're ahead in the corner, you own the racing line.
no, so I think that's the talk. That's always been
the rule. Even in karting has been the rule. So
it's tough. You're damn if you do and you're damn if you don't.
Yeah, exactly. Either way you're gonna get.
Like if they don't got a penalty on that, they could have been suggested, hey, why didn't they got a penalty for that?
Yeah.
And it's a balance.
Yeah. Either way.
And Horner did agree that the Lando Perez incident was not deemed they shouldn't have gone a penalty for that. And then he said, but then the incident with Leclerc came.
It should have been a penalty.
Because he said because the first one was already called, they had to call that one.
They had to call it.
That's what Horner said after the race.
Mm-hmm. They had to call it.
But if I'm Horner, I'm like, they shouldn't have called any penalties because my guy got 2 5-second penalties. Like, come on. All right. And where we saw Lewis Hamilton take some floor damage, some damage to the car in general. Then we also saw Bottas. He actually had a much better race than normal for him this season. I'm trying to say that very carefully. He finished second. Hamilton finished fourth. We talked about Mercedes earlier. It's not over, is it?
No, it's not.
No, it's not over.
I think
it's over.
I think this race,
Constructors Championship.
this race was also like a trusting, like a regaining of trust between Bottas and his pit wall, because there were he was still hesitant because of what happened to him last week, and he did mention something to that effect. Is this what we're doing?
Confirming that we're sticking with Plan A. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is probably because of where he started and where he finished. It could be a trusting think now that, hey, okay, whatever you guys say, I'm going to trust it, even though last week, I said something else and that's what worked.
Right. And I mean, it's not over. They knew that they were. If you hear Hamilton's comments and you hear Bottas' comment, even after qualifying, when they said Hamilton said, "Listen, we're not going to be able to keep up with them. This is just it's one of those things where it's like we're going to drive to get us, maximize the weekend, but we're not going to be able to win the race." And it was true because Max finished, 20 seconds ahead. I don't know what the pit stop is, but
about 20 seconds.
Yeah, 20 seconds ahead. So I mean, he was Max in that Red Bull was just a rocket this weekend. So I think that the best that they could do is finish second and third. They almost did it. If it wasn't for the damage to Lewis Hamilton's car because he ran the car over the curb, I think that he would have finished second. And I also think that Bottas would have gotten past Norris. Norris wouldn't have finished on the podium. But the way things worked out, it is what it is.
I don't think Bottas has it to take. Obviously, he has a better car, but it'll be tough for Bottas to pass Norris.
One-on-one.
Yeah, one-on-one.
I mean,
we saw Hamilton struggle to pass
Exactly.
Norris.
So then we got Bottas, that's not a fighter.
He's a lover. He shows his arse.
He loves, yeah. He shows his arts and eats porridge.
So that that second and fourth, 18 and 12 for Bottas and Hamilton is still less points than the first and sixth for Verstappen and Perez, which was 26 and 8 versus 18 and 12.
That's the
advantage of winning.
Of winning a race.
And
you're literally getting a 7-point jump on the team if you win the race. So because that's the difference between first and second. So I mean, and much credit to Lando again because he finished second on the track. He just got that 5-second penalty.
Yeah,
and actually finished third. So
that's how Bottas was able to pass him in the pit.
Yeah, he passed him in the pit.
So pretty much his pit was told, "Hey, just do what."
But that's
what
why
Norris
I
does.
think that's why I think that they would have finished second and third because, I mean, they would have gotten him in the pits anyway.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was just that they didn't have both cars at full strength. Bottas, drove. He did what he was supposed to do, and considering that they had the damage, I think that's the best thing. That's the best result that they could have gotten this weekend. But this is not over, man. It's not over. As Total Wolf said, one DNF and we're right back in it. So
and we're still waiting for that because
we are. We've been talking about it the whole season.
Guess what? The part that Yhancy mentioned might fail.
I'm just looking back to. I'm just looking back to 2017 and 2018, how we thought Ferrari was going to run away with the championship.
And it wasn't until Germany when it was like,
and then when the summer break is over, all of a sudden Lewis Hamilton is back on form, and he was like 7 races in a row, and man, this ain't over yet.
Max Verstappen 182 points, Lewis Hamilton 150. So he's at a point where he can take a DNF.
Mm-hmm.
Hamilton could get fastest lap, and he would still be up by 6 points.
Yeah, and then you know what? Verstappen has already DNF this season, so it doesn't mean that he can't do it now. You said it. Reliability is key.
But he didn't. So he didn't DNF because of Red Bull's reliability. It was the Pirelli.
Wow, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. This is why we race. This is why we can write everything down on paper, and it still doesn't matter because when it comes race day, we don't know what's going to happen. It could be a boring race. It could be a fun race. It could be a boring race, and Baku was turning out to be, and then it became a fun race because Max DNF. He was leading the race.
Yeah,
so, and they would have been 4 in a row for Max if he hadn't DNF'd in Baku. So
in this past race, if it wasn't for the battles like in the midfield, the race would have been boring.
It's like when I think in 2016 when Lewis Hamilton was
16 was Rosberg win.
I know, but in Malaysia, which is a few races before, Hamilton DNF'd, and that's what gave Rosberg the league and the championship, and Rosberg never looked back. DNF,
he blew the engine.
He blew the engine. No. Yeah. That was his championship, and from then on, Rosberg won the championship.
Constructors wise, Red
Things
Bull
happen.
Red Bull 286, Mercedes 242. So it's exactly, if both, obviously, not impossible, but it'd be tough. If both Red Bulls DNF and Mercedes gets 1-2 and the fastest lap, then they're tied.
Yeah.
So,
And remember, listen, we're only using 23 races, 3 engines. Once we get to the end,
I don't know.
it can happen. I
don't know.
This is not over yet.
It would take a lot of work from Bottas, but that's whatever.
Come on, man. Get out
Wellington
more
has no
faith in,
confidence. Yeah, he's no faith
in the
both.
arse.
No.
Faith in the arse.
Face in the arse.
Faith in the arse.
At least it's natural, right? It's not like Miami. Like
There you go,
injections.
man. Faith in the arse. Let's go, Bottas.
Midfield talk. Daniel Ricciardo finished 7th. Finally, it looked, and we said this back in Baku? No, not Monaco, but yeah, I think it was Baku. He actually looked pretty good this race.
Mm-hmm.
Do we see him finally coming back alive? We're getting more into. So last week was a regular track versus the Bakus and Monacos. Next week will be a regular track. Not next week, but the following week. Silverstone. Then we go into, I think, Hungaroring.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's the summer break.
Mm-hmm.
Do we see this man finally come back?
I think he's coming back to form race-wise on Sundays. Last race was not so good for him. Obviously, he had an engine issue. And he had it at the wrong time of the race, which is at the beginning of the race when the cars are more close together. And that midfield is super tight. So I guess it was just, bad timing. Not that he drove well, but he didn't drive as bad as the results show. This race, it looked like he was back on form like he was at the previous race in
Baku.
Before.
It was Austria. Baku, Styria, Austria. And before that was Monaco. I'm sorry. I messed up. Baku, France.
Yeah.
Styria.
He showed the form that he showed in France.
Okay.
At a better race in France.
I think
And
it's to
these
do with the
things
starts.
happen. Yeah, he's good with the starts. I think he's just getting, he's getting back to form. It's like I mentioned last week. I think his confidence level has not waned. I think, things happen within the car. He had that engine issue. He lost some power. They were able to, do some switching up, and he got the power back, but it was too late by the end. Everybody had passed him. He just has to get his qualifying sorted out. I think that's why Lando has been way ahead in the races, because he's qualified and he stayed up there. Qualifying is very important, especially in the midfield. So yeah, I don't see. I thought it was very good for him. I think his attitude is right, because he's saying that, listen, I don't want to get too excited, but I don't want to get too down on myself. I just want to keep driving the way I'm driving, and then things are progressing. But he still seems, watching the interviews afterwards for me is important, because you can see their body language, you can see how they're acting. And he still seems very confident, but he doesn't want to get too excited, because obviously you get too high, and then something happens, and then you're low again. It kind of sucks for your confidence. And for a driver, confidence is everything.
So pretty much what you're saying is the luck. Both things have to be aligned. He has to qualify and has to luck on his side as well.
Yeah, but most of the time, I think when you drive well, luck does come on your side. That's the way it always works out, anyways. For the most part, I would say.
McLaren needs him. McLaren needs him.
I hope he takes this as a little push of encouragement to keep moving forward. Because
if he doesn't get on his form, I think. Obviously, we're looking at.
When would it be? After the summer break?
I don't know.
If it doesn't happen in the next couple of races, obviously, because
I don't know. We're not there, but he needs to get on form, because Ferrari and their 2 drivers are on the same page. We saw good teamwork between them this race. As far as Leclerc tried to get past. What was it?
I think it was either Perez or Ricardo that were there.
Yeah, I think it was
Some of
Perez, right? He tried to get past. I don't know. Yeah, was it Paris?
Well, he was battling Paris. That's what he's saying.
He was battling Paris. He tried to get by
Yeah.
Paris a few times.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't. It couldn't.
That whole
couldn't do it.
mashup, it was Ricardo, Perez, Sainz, and Leclerc.
Right.
I remember one point also before the pits, both of the Aston Martin was there too, in that whole
Yeah.
train. That was there.
It was like a little train, and then obviously, they were what Ferrari did as far as the team wise is that they put their two drivers on different strategies. So they started Sainz on the hards, and they started Leclerc on the mediums. So at the end, we always knew once they pitted, they pitted Sainz, and he was going to be on the mediums at the end of the race. We always knew that they got him in the gap right behind Leclerc. So we always knew that if Leclerc couldn't get past Perez, they had another car right behind him to attack him, and he's going to be on fresher tires.
That was actually really good strategy-wise, and I was surprised that they did the team orders to swap.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised because
Didn't they do that last weekend too?
they've been doing,
in France.
they've been
They
working
did
well
it.
as a team, but I think the reason that is because remember Ferrari now is fighting for
Constructors' points.
constructors' points. They're not really fighting for the drivers' championship.
Yeah, so it only makes
So they're not fighting at the top.
Yeah.
And you see that a lot. That dynamic, the teamwork dynamic is more prevalent in the midfield teams than they are in the top teams.
And it also happened with Lando and Ricardo.
Yeah. So most teams, when they're fighting for championship points, they're going to work better as a team. But now, when one of your drivers is fighting for the drivers' championship, then things change and things get a little bit iffy. But so far as the strategy is concerned, this year, Ferrari has been on top of it. They were smart in running. They obviously, and I mentioned this to both of you guys during qualifying. They obviously, the best tire to start on was the medium. So they said, and it was as a change in dynamic is what you were mentioning earlier. They said, okay, if we don't do well in qualifying, which we have done before, but we suffer in the race, it's okay because if we finish outside of the top 10, which I think they finished, 10th and 11th?
11th and 12th. But they started, starting grid, they started 10th and 11th.
Yeah, they started.
Because of 10th and 12th because of the Vettel penalty.
Yeah, what it seemed to me what they did during qualifying was, let's go on the mediums because we want to start these, at least we want to start this race on mediums. If we don't get through, it's okay, even though you want to get through, but it's okay because if you finish outside of the top 10, we have a tire choice. We can choose the tires where we want to start with.
That's going to be my
If you get into Q3, you have to start with the tires that you went in. They wanted to start on the mediums. The smart play, what they did, which I wasn't expecting, is that they left Leclerc on the mediums, brand new mediums, but they put Sainz.
Leclerc was on the old mediums and Sainz was on the new hard.
Yeah, they put Sainz on the hards to run a different strategy, and at the end of the race, it worked out for them.
Yeah, that's what,
because now you have two cars attacking the position ahead.
That's what Sam Collins was saying for F1, saying that that even though starting on the mediums and finishing the hards is what Pirelli recommended, it could also be in reverse, where like what you guys start in the hards,
go long on the hards,
and the car is heavier, so because the hard tires that take longer, and then when you jump on the mediums, the car is lighter, which is also what it could be, which is cool with. I'm fucking stuck in this shit. My bad.
Which it could be
what happens normally because you're qualifying on a much lighter car. And then when you start the race, you have a heavy car, and now it also causes the tire to super degrade.
Right, and also you have the medium tire. You can turn it on quicker. So the hard tire was actually a very good tire, but it took longer. I think like 5 or 6 laps for them to...
Science did mention that as well.
Yeah, it takes like 5 or 6 laps for them to really,
get on
to activate, and you get the optimal grip with the mediums. Obviously, they're a softer compound. You can turn them on quicker, and you can move up through the field.
So I got
quicker.
Something that with a better penalty that caused Leclerc to jump in the top 10. So obviously, it's just off topic of what we're talking about right now. But what happens in that situation? So I qualified outside of the top 10. Okay, now somebody got a penalty, which threw me in the top 10. Mm-hmm. So now, do I have to start because I'm in the top 10 on my fastest tire in Q2 again?
Nope, because he didn't make it to Q3.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
So Vettel made it to...
You get my point.
I get your point. Vettel made it to Q3 and then dropped out of the top 10 after qualifying when he was assessed that penalty.
Gotcha.
So they didn't say, all right, you don't go to Q3 because of this.
Gotcha. So Leclerc still had the choice to start on the harsh
Correct.
or the medium.
Yes,
Correct.
exactly.
Actually, Sainz finished ahead of him, and he was the one that pushed into 10th, and he started on the new hards. You know what I'm saying?
Nope. You lost me.
So by Vettel dropping, Sainz qualified ahead of Leclerc. Sainz pushed into the top 10, but he was the one that went onto the new hards, and Leclerc stayed on the used mediums.
It's true. Sainz did qualify ahead of Leclerc. My bad. Yeah. Thank you.
Apology accepted. Yo, lastly, well, not lastly. So Aston Martin, Alpine, and AlphaTauri. Who's the faster car?
Aston Martin,
AlphaTauri.
Alpine and AlphaTauri.
Aston Martin, Alpine,
I say AlphaTauri.
AlphaTauri.
Right now.
Is it faster car?
Yeah. It's just the two drivers are not completing the package.
You have Sonoda making rookie mistakes,
Yes.
but
Causing red flags everywhere. Except
you have Gasly consistently in Q3. Consistently.
But the
Always
stars of the
running in the
race
top 10.
have not helped him.
Yeah, always running in the
Mistakes
top.
that happen in the start of the race have been the one to kill him pretty much.
So
Either losing the
Gasly,
wing
Right.
happened in the last race, which he was out
It
of
would
the
be
race.
much more visible if he was on Red Bull team proper, right? Like he was before. That's where the mistakes are much
so
more
Gasly
visible.
out of what? We have what? 9
more
races.
noticeable.
We have,
Yeah.
n-
Like,
we
really
have
in the
9
front.
races so far, right?
Yeah.
Gasly has finished in the points 7 out of those 9 races.
And the other two are the ones where mistakes. Like, for example, last week where he didn't F, or then he couldn't continue. And the one, I believe, was it Bahrain that he lost his wing, the front wing.
Yeah.
In Bahrain he finished 17th.
I thought he did.
And then he retired in the last race. I think what's keeping AlphaTauri back and is just the team. They started off on the wrong strategy. They started off on the softs, much like Aston Martin. When they started off on the soft, they had to pit on lap.
Early.
No, Sonoda pitted on 12,
12 and Gasly 13.
And Gasly was it 13?
Yep.
So now that sets you up, and I think, and then Gasly did a 2-stop instead of a 1-stop.
Yeah.
That wasn't the optimal
Tsunoda
strategy.
too.
Yeah. So the tires went off quickly. They had to go back behind the pack.
But
with the
same thing
hards.
happened to Aston Martin.
Yeah. So it was
They fell
just
completely back because they actually reacted to AlphaTauri's strategy to go somewhere.
With Stroll. Vettel
Yeah.
kind of did his own thing. But
they were doomed from the beginning because they started off on the softs.
so who's faster? Alpine or Aston Martin?
Alpine, I would say.
You would say?
Yeah. And now they got, Alonso's back on form. I don't know what the hell's going on.
So I'm going to read you the championship standings for those 3 teams, constructors-wise. AlphaTauri 48, Aston Martin 44, Alpine 32. Remember that within that, Vettel got a podium.
Yeah.
Pierre Gasly got a podium.
Yes.
No
Alpine,
podiums for
nada.
Alpine. They're down 12 points too.
So you're disagreeing with me that Aston Martin is slower than the Alpine?
I am disagreeing with you. I think that they have, just like Mercedes, they have concepts that they have to deal with as well. The rake obviously being different, the arrow changes kind of affecting them more so than other teams. Vettel getting used to the car. That's
I think that's over
that's
now.
everybody. Yeah.
I think that's done. I think the only one out of those 4 drivers, I think that the only one that has to sort things out is going to be Ricciardo at this point, because Alonso looks like his own self again.
Yeah, and Ocon does not. Ocon does not look good.
Yeah, I don't know.
He
what's going
crashed
on.
this week. I don't know. It was not his fault. He got sandwiched in, but he just does not look good anymore after he got that deal. He got fat.
Yeah.
Maybe,
He
He got fat and happy.
maybe it was just the track. This track, I don't know. Let me see what is.
I think all the 3 teams,
yeah,
what they need is to have complete package weekends.
Listen, Ocon, he finished 13th the first race. He had 4 points finishes in a row, 9th, 7th, 9th.
That was before the contract.
Yep, and then starting from Azerbaijan on, retired, 14th, and retired. So yeah, he's not doing well.
AlphaTauri, Aston Martin, and Alpine, they need complete packages, complete weekends. Like both drivers to put up, the teams to perform to the top. So they could, I guess, get more and more and more.
If they were more consistent, any one of those teams, they're fighting Ferrari, right?
Yep.
Yes, absolutely.
Ferrari is 80 points ahead of. Let me just verify that. Ferrari is 74 points ahead of AlphaTauri.
It just shows you how close the midfield is and how a few bad races can really tumble you down the order.
Back.
Yeah, and the Constructors' Champion. The beauty of all of this is that we're only 9 races in. It's 23 races. So things can change.
Who turns it around out of all of them, out of those 3?
Who?
Meaning who figures it out first out of the 3 we've been talking about? Alpine, Aston, and AlphaTauri.
I'll say Alpine.
I'll say Aston because they have Vettel. Granted, Fernando Alonso would counteract that. But Vettel, whose head is more in the game, they have money. And I think they just have more of a desire to show that, we're actually still here.
I think Alpine, my opinion, Alpine will turn it around quicker. But the battle is between whoever turns that around is between them and AlphaTauri. I think AlphaTauri has a faster car out of those 3 anyways.
Okay, and lastly, out of this race, George Russell, our boy. George Russell qualifies, 9th, goes into Q3.
Sorry.
Goes into Q3 for the first time for a Williams car since 2018 or 2019. Lance Stroll did it. Was running in the points for some time, was passed by Fernando Alonso in the Alpine that we were just talking about, to the point where Fernando Alonso said it was actually sad that he had to pass George Russell to get into the points. It was a valiant effort from George, trying to stave him off, but the car, just not good enough.
Just not good enough, yeah.
But the 10-lap battle was actually very nice to watch.
Yeah. It was George. I think this was probably George's best weekend since Sakir.
Which was a terrible weekend as well for him.
Yeah,
but I mean, as far as, just seeing performance, I mean, obviously things didn't work out. And I would say that this weekend was probably better than that because he's in a car that
belongs at the bottom.
It
to
just
the bottom.
Look at Latifi.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so the fact that you can get into Q3 with the Williams, the fact that you not only, obviously, I think if he would have had a better first lap, he might have finished in the points.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, if you're usually this is what happens. If you're out of position, meaning if you're starting higher than what you're supposed to be starting as far as how fast your car is, you're going to get eaten up by the cars behind you. And the same thing in the race.
That's what happened.
So, and that's exactly what happened. For him to get back into the points was brilliant because he made that strategy work, obviously, and he outdrove that car. Yeah, and at least he finished the race. At least it wasn't that he crashed out or anything like that. Yeah. It was a valiant effort by him, yeah. And we saw that Alonso was there just because he got blacked by Vettel in qualifying.
Yeah.
He started 14th. Alonso was running 4th, 5th, or 6th throughout all of qualifying. So Alonso was a lot faster than where he started off, and he obviously started off on the back foot. In order for the fact that Alonso even got into the points was an excellent drive by Alonso also. It just sucks that he had to overtake Russell for that last points position.
In that replay of when Alonso was doing the quali run and Vettel was there, I was like, oh my God, he's going to just freaking destroy.
I thought they were going to crash.
Yeah. I mean,
especially the movement that Vettel was doing, because I think Alonso was trying to get away from him, but Vettel was...
I think Vettel noticed it and tried to get out of the way.
Yeah,
that's
he tried
why,
to get out of the way
he
and
was waiting.
couldn't, but there was too many cars ahead of him in the queue. So
it was like a combination of both. Like, he also had traffic in front, but he was the one that made the moves to really stop.
I don't think that the gentleman agreement is working.
They need to make a rule.
They need to figure that out. because obviously if one car backs up, then you're gonna back out all the other cars. Alonso on that lap was flying, probably one of the best laps I ever seen him drive. He was flying, and he was.
I wasn't expecting that lap.
He was gonna get into Q3. Man.
He was, yeah.
He was gonna get into Q3, and it didn't work out.
Back to Georgie. It's not to me. It's not just a story about George Russell. It's a story about Williams, right? Because now he's outperforming in qualifying. He outperformed the Aston Martins to finish ninth. One Aston Martin, Lance Stroll, outperformed both Ferraris, which is a team thing. I don't think that's really necessarily on the two drivers. Outperformed a McLaren. Outperformed another Alpine. Well, Fernando Alonso, he had his issues. The Alfa Romeos, the Alpine of Esteban Ocon, his own teammate, who he's crushing, and obviously has. But I think that in general, the Williams car.
Why did you say has so low? Like it just has. Has been.
The man, man.
Where's the little Inception thing? The top. Williams is getting better. Where I think that next year we're going to see, with a little bit of money infusion that they've gotten from Dorito Capital, that their next season they're going to be much better.
Is it Flaming Hot Dorito? Or?
Me personally, I'm a fan of Cool Ranch Doritos, blue bags.
How about you, Ruben?
Yeah, I think I'm the only one that I know.
Doritos.
Yeah.
Anyway,
plain chips for me. Go ahead.
Where do we see? Do we see Williams leapfrogging as a manufacturer any team next year? Do they leapfrog Alfa Romeo?
You sound like
maybe.
You sound like David or was it Keenan David Ortiz impersonation on SNL? Do they leapfrog Alfa Romeo?
What's up, cacasas?
Do they leapfrog Aston Martin?
Arroz con pollo.
Yeah, I'm actually really hungry too.
Me too. It does. They have to make some sort of leap because they are getting away from all this way and all technology that Williams had stuck in that car.
Yeah, you mentioned it during the race actually when we were together.
Williams, because they did a lot of the stuff in-house to save money and stuff like that, they've been using a lot of old equipment, whether it be, the transmission or the gearbox, whatever you want to call it,
right.
and stuff like that. So they're going to be facing away from all of that because they're also going to outsource a bunch of stuff.
From Mercedes.
Yeah. So it should be, because remember, it's probably like maybe the last 3 or 4 years.
So it'll be the blue Mercedes.
No, it's probably been like the last, 3 or 4 years, or maybe 3 years that they actually just tanked.
Yes.
They were fighting for best of the rest, and they were best of the rest for a while.
The issue with Williams has been, and I
money.
think this is what you're saying, is that it's not only money. Obviously, they haven't had the money because they've had to have paid drivers in their interim to say they had Stroll and they had Latifi.
And whatchamacallit, they had
and then
Sergey
Sorokin in there. And they also had Kubica in there, but Kubica only got that seat because he was able to bring enough money.
Yes.
He's like a hero in Poland.
Yeah. I mean, but the other reason besides money is that they were sticking to their guns because they wanted to stay true to what a manufacturer is. They wanted to build their own gearbox, their own parts. And if you don't have enough money to do that, or you don't have, let's say, a big manufacturer backing you, you're not going to be able to do that on I wouldn't say consistent, but you wouldn't have to do it on a high level that is required of F1. You got to make sure
that's required now.
Yeah, that's required now in F1. I think that model has gone to the wayside. I think the first people to introduce that model where you're buying parts from a manufacturer would be Haas with their relationship with Ferrari. And I think that's the model that a lot of people that is going to, because you save some costs, obviously, because you don't have to pay people to develop things. The money is not wasted, but it's spent mostly on development. A good amount of money is spent on development. Now, if you can just buy the part, you don't have to spend the money on development and making it. You can just buy it and put it on the car, and that's it.
That's why I said that at the beginning from Williams, because we got to remember the Williams is actually the best historic team we have besides Ferrari, you could say by name. But Williams has been also at the breakthrough of a lot of a lot of technology.
Yes.
Yeah.
That now these works
Absolutely.
teams are bringing it because now they're the one. You know, like
But they have the financial backing. I think
Exactly,
it's
that's
a
what-
very different. It's a very different environment as far as
yeah.
how you're, how teams are able to spend money and how much it costs, and it's just different. And I think obviously we've seen it in the business world. If you can't adapt in the business world, you get left behind. And I think that's what was happening to Williams until they sold it, and then now they have financial backing, and we've seen that. Obviously,
They'll be
we've
back.
seen that.
They'll be
We've
back.
seen it with Force India, which was Racing Point, which is now Aston Martin. If you're able to infuse money into the team, you're going to get better results. I mean, obviously, they're not doing as good as they did last year as far as Aston Martin is concerned, but they did make a big jump last year.
Of course.
And, they're poised to
They'll be back too.
do well in the future. So,
Both teams will be back.
and I think that's why they also brought in the cost cap, because what you want to do with these teams is make them almost like a franchise where they are able to sustain themselves forever. I think F1 had a culture where if you're a back marker, you would go out of business and
Just get sold, whatever,
as opposed to, let's say, a Premier League or MLB or an NFL team where you have these established franchises that obviously, even though they suck, they still make money.
Premier League is very different because you get relegated down
Well,
to
yeah.
the minor leagues.
Yeah, I mean, but you still have those franchises like the Manchester United and Liverpool, and these are big franchises.
Tottenham.
Yeah, same thing with the Dallas Cowboys, the
Boom.
New York Yankees. The New York Giants. That these are franchises that are viable, but even the teams that I'll say are not as good as like traditionally as good as the I don't even want to say the Cowboys because they suck, but let's say the Giants or the Yankees.
Oh God,
You
he said traditionally good.
Oh my bad.
yeah, these are franchises that even if they lose, they're still financially viable. They're still a good business.
Yeah, and F1 is tough too.
Yeah. So why I think when Liberty Media stepped into the fray and bought it, I think their goal was to make these F1 teams franchises where they're able to last for a very long time and still be financially viable, even if they are at the back of the grid.
All right, gentlemen, anything else?
No, that's it. We're going to
It was a good race.
Silverstone.
Sprint race.
sprint races, baby.
Next week's preview is going to be litty.
Let's do it. You guys excited about the sprint race?
Yes. We'll talk about it next week. Guys, you can find us on many, many podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and Stitcher. We're also on YouTube. What's up? We are also at Jump to Start F1 on Twitter and on Instagram. The same. I'll repeat it. At Jump to Start F1. See you guys next week.
Peace.